Luminous perceived everything happening on the battlefield. Consequently, she found herself troubled by an unbelievable situation. The world-destroying dragon Ivorage had taken the form of Lucia, its platinum-pink hair flowing in the wind. Judging by its overwhelming presence, the odds of victory were likely despairing, no matter who opposed it. That was not all. Ivorage's 3 servants were also present. As each had transformed into a humanoid form, their sense of scale had changed as well. The largest was Kakishi, who had taken a male form. Conversely, the smallest was Swim. Although its gender was indeterminate, it had a girlish appearance. And Habataki was in female form, possessing a well-balanced physique. From these 3 as well, power outside the realm of common sense could be felt. To be honest, it seemed that even Luminous would be no match for them. In the northern sector, Habataki's ferocity was far more troublesome than imagined. Flying through dimensions was, in reality, nothing short of teleportation. It could jump without regard for short or long distances, and without any preparatory motion. If there were warning signs, countermeasures could be planned, but there were none. Ignoring the concept of distance, Habataki would attack. Magic is also a concept that ignores distance when activated. However, one still needs to designate coordinates, whether by visual confirmation or other means. While directly burning a target is not impossible, the difficulty level jumps drastically. Naturally, changing coordinates mid-cast is impermissible for large-scale or grand magic. Since this was not an opponent that could be handled with normal magic, the heroes who specialized in magic had no means of fighting back. However, leaving Habataki unchecked would result in massive damage. It was here that Mai Furuki, who had returned from the otherworld with Yuki and the others, played a crucial role. Although she had been thrown into a troublesome situation without any explanation, Mai gave it her all. She probed for what was required in the current battle situation, and tried to act appropriately. Not knowing where it will appear is truly troublesome, Mai thought. Thus, utilizing her ultimate skill Terramator to prevent Habataki from using teleportation, she interfered with the coordinate phases to jam it. As a result, Habataki's calculations failed. Habataki, who had been rampaging across the battlefield as it pleased, found its prize teleportation sealed away. That this was possible was the result of several strokes of luck overlapping. First and foremost, teleportation required delicate technique. Precise calculations must be performed. If there is an error in the input data, it will not activate. What Mai did was falsify that information. To move through space, at least 2 things are essential: current location coordinates and target location information. Mai disrupted the wavelengths of the battlefield space, making it impossible to read accurate information. However, this was no simple task. Understanding the logic and theory is one thing. Being able to execute it is another story entirely. Gadra and Adalman alone would have been helpless. Had Mai not been present, there would have been no way to stop Habataki's teleportation. Luck played a part here as well. It was only because Mai had acquired Terramator and could fully wield its authority that this result was achieved. Well, everything was fine up to this point, but a bird that cannot fly is just small fry. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Regrettably, even without relying on teleportation, Habataki possessed sufficiently powerful combat capabilities. Habataki was capable of flying at speeds dozens of times the speed of sound. It attacks, targets the next prey, and then flies. Because of the switching time and the time lag from initial velocity to reaching maximum speed, the actual speed wasn't quite that high. Even so, possessing both speed and durability, Habataki repeated its slaughter like a blade dancing on the battlefield. Without Luminous's resurrection magic, defeat would have been inevitable. Good grief. Even though Mai went to the trouble of sealing its teleportation. Who might you be? It is I, Gadra. You're not a grandpa anymore. This was Mai's first meeting with the youthful reborn Gadra. She had met him through Yuki in the Empire, but his appearance was so different she couldn't recognize him. Though Mai had many questions, this was no time for leisurely conversation. Since she had joined the battle in a hurry, she decided to quietly follow instructions. That said, there were few moves they could make. The 100 members of the Black Numbers under Diablo were under Gadra's command. Being a meritocracy, they did not mock Gadra as a newcomer. Moreover, if they failed due to petty vanity or jealousy, sanctions from Diablo awaited them. They fought dealing with Habataki with all their might, fearing not death, though if they died, they would face sanctions anyway. Luz also displayed his true worth, leading nearly 400 members of the Bloody Knights. Gunther, too, cast aside his rivalry with Luz and fought alongside him with full force. Even while stained in blood, they attempted to hinder Habataki's movements. What they all shared was a lack of fear regarding sacrifice. Each exerted every ounce of strength, struggling desperately toward victory. Nothing more could be asked of them. Without any brilliant plan to break the deadlock, Mai's performance in sealing just one of Habataki's trump cards was worthy of high praise. However, the battlefield is not so forgiving. What shall we do? Its attacks are slashing strikes at super high speed. Those wings seem to be made of the ultimate metal, Hurricane. They will slice through whatever armor is used for protection. Adalman, having withdrawn from the front lines, picked up where Gadra left off. Poorly constructed magical defenses are useless, too. I tried various things, but I nearly died. True to his words, his shoulder was gashed open, and blood was flowing. Having obtained a flesh and blood body meant more injuries, leading Adalman to think that perhaps remaining a skeleton might have been better. Winty and others would be strongly opposed to that opinion. With no time for leisurely consultation, Adalman had no choice but to persevere in his current form. For that reason, he had holy magic. Area Great High Heal and Area Great Regeneration active at all times. Even now, the wound was regenerating before their eyes. There was pain, but Adalman continued without showing it. However, I have learned something. That bird is a formidable enemy, but its intelligence is not that high. It seems to have a habit of targeting moving objects, so I believe we can manage if we set a trap. A trap. Yes. We prepare a decoy and have the bird target them. Just before contact, if the young lady could use her power to teleport them away, then... Are you saying I should be the decoy? You are saying that, aren't you? Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 isn't the response I want. Mai sighed heavily. She thought about complaining, but she intuitively realized that the strategy was rational. It was a strategy that wouldn't work if the enemy had high intelligence, but its very simplicity made it effective. Jamming the opponent's teleportation while escaping herself was highly difficult, but not impossible. Thinking it can't be helped, Mai accepted the mission. And the operation went well. Mai's magicule quantity was substantial, the highest in this sector. Perhaps finding her attractive as bait, Habataki began to target Mai relentlessly. Thus, thanks to Mai taking on the greatest threat alone, the breathing room to sweep up the other magic beasts was created. Furthermore, the Hiryu led by Yushichi, Sukuru, and Kakishin arrived on the scene. The effects of the healing magic Adalman activated were also still ongoing. The battlefield stabilized, and the atmosphere suggested they might successfully aim for victory, but... Whoa, evolving right here. That's cheating. Just as Mike complained, Habataki had transformed into a humanoid form. The light of intelligence dwelled in its eyes, and it was immediately apparent that it was no longer the simple opponent it had been until now. Mai had been able to escape safely because she had the advantage of utilizing her authority. In a comparison of combat ability, it was no contest. If they fought seriously, she would likely be killed without lasting even a minute. I feel like it's over. Mai lamented, gazing at Habataki with a feeling of despair. On the Western Front. Amidst the fierce battlefield, there existed a relatively safe zone. This was the anchor point for the Holy Field Barrier. There were 8 locations in total. 4 on the ground and 4 in the sky. Sar, who was responsible for one of these quarters, gave a wry smile, wondering if this was the end for him. Good grief. It seems the monster has grown even more powerful. A 4-legged beast, resembling a brutalized wolf, had taken on a somewhat human form. Though his physical size had diminished, its presence had intensified. Clearly, its combat capabilities had increased as well. The only stroke of luck was that Kakishi hadn't moved yet. The reason was simple. Accustomed to fighting as a beast, it was bewildered by its own transformation. Yo, what's the plan? Don't tell me you want to run away. A light-hearted quip resonated within Sar's mind. It was Fritz, who was clinging to the highest window of the tower to maintain the upper barrier, communicating through the barrier's connection. Ha, don't be ridiculous. You're free to be scared, but please don't lump me in with you, Sar retorted. It wasn't that he didn't want to run. He simply knew that running was meaningless. That was likely true for any of the heroes present. Yes, even for the woman who had once abandoned Sar and fled. Don't you need to run away, Glenda? Lacing his words with a hint of resentment, Sar asked his former colleague. Run? It's a waste of time to even think about that. What matters now is how we make use of our limited lives, right? Hearing this, Sar was astonished. Gregory was equally shocked. Oi, you saying that? Gregory exclaimed in exasperation. Sar jumped on the bandwagon. Don't screw around, Glenda. When we faced that demon Diablo, you abandoned me and ran. Don't tell me you've forgotten that. Yet, Glenda remained dignified. The situation is different. Back then, I was a puppet of the Razos, and I didn't possess any ideals or great causes. Oi. So you're saying you have them now? Yeah. Even if you say that, I can't bring myself to believe it. Facing her 2 former colleagues, who were beyond skeptical and completely distrustful, Glenda snorted with laughter. While barking sharp orders to her subordinates, she flashed a grin at Sar and Gregory. What small men you are. That's why you were too scared of Lady Hinata to return to Lobelia, isn't it? Well, fine. You probably won't believe anything I say anyway, so I'll prove it with my actions from here on out. Leaving those words behind, Glenda returned once more to the ferocious battlefield. Watching her go, Sar and Gregory exchanged complicated glances. What do you think? Man, I still feel like I can't believe it. She's changed, hasn't she? Yeah. If I don't admit that much, I'm the one who'll look uncool. True enough. The two nodded to each other, albeit reluctantly. Then, they cast aside their hesitation. I will use every ounce of my strength to maintain the barrier for even 1 second longer. Even if this body shatters. You bet. And I'll protect you for even 1 second longer. If we do that, we earn 2 seconds. The reason Gregory didn't move from this spot was that he had volunteered to be Sar's guard. Compared to the battered Glenda, Gregory himself was unharmed. That fact made the situation awkward. That was precisely why he had to give his all to the role entrusted to him. That's excellent. If we can buy even 2 seconds for the time left to humanity. No doubt about it. They shouted to each other, psyching themselves up again. In the meantime, the moment they feared arrived. Kakishi's preparations were complete. Kakishi placed its right fist on the ground, adopting a stance like a sumo wrestler at the starting line. Keeping its left fist off the ground, it sprinted forward. It was a terrifying acceleration. Instantly exceeding the speed of sound, it closed in on Sar. As expected, I'm the target. He had a premonition. While many of the other cryptids on the Western Front had low intelligence, the high-ranking species possessed a certain level of wisdom. From Kakishi, who commanded them, a malicious intent could be felt. It realized that I am the weak point. It understands that if it crushes me, it can destroy this holy field. Sar prepared himself for death. He needed his holy energy so that even if that happened, the holy field would be maintained and his energy would continue to manifest. This was no time to run, and dying was no excuse to escape his responsibilities. He might be resurrected after death, but if the holy field collapsed in that interim, humanity's defeat would become decisive.